Welcome to the Thrive in the Workplace podcast, brought to you by The Wellness Theory in partnership with B1G1 Business for Good. This podcast is all about uplifting organisations to thrive when it comes to all things workplace wellbeing. From organisational culture, the most effective wellness campaigns you can imagine, and integrating social good. You will find insights, inspiration and information that supports leaders at all levels to implement best practices to improve engagement, performance and vitality within the workforce. We believe that workplaces can and should be healthy and sustainable for both the workforce, the bottom line and the community. And in this podcast, we'll show you how. And just so you know, for every listen this podcast gets, we'll be donating to a life-saving project aligned with the UN 2030 global goals. So thank you for being here and continuing the ripple effect. Without further ado, join us to thrive in the workplace and become a force for good in the world. Welcome to today's show, everyone. I'm very excited to introduce you to Mark Maycroft. Mark is a founder of Soken, which is the GCC's most innovative employee wellbeing solution. Soken's blend of research-led physical and digital wellbeing services utilize data analysis to help organizations prioritize employee wellbeing, improve productivity and engagement to foster a healthy work culture. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Hi, thank you very much.
So we met earlier this year at an event that you actually hosted called Mastering the Art of Workplace Wellbeing. So I'm very excited to have you on the podcast today. What a better guest can we get given that event that you hosted, which was a really, really great event. So I would love to kick off with you sharing a bit about your journey and what led you to focus on workplace wellbeing.
I'll keep it condensed but hopefully informative. My background is quite unique, and I always share this. I have never had a corporate job. So my career path is, I had never classed myself as having a real job actually. So I joined the Royal Marines around the age of 19, worked within this, did some work alongside Special Forces and some really cool tasks, but super high adrenaline, very physical and having to use your brain a little bit, but also working in these high stress environments. It tested your mental aptitude and how strong you are, and it was very good thinking that you come out of this being super strong, super in control, and I'm my master of one. I had no physical conditions or mental health conditions out the back of it, and so I embarked on my career after leaving in a degree in sports science. And while I was doing that, I built an outdoor physical training business called Marine Phys. And the idea with this, we worked in Hyde Park, Primrose Hill and central London, and we did personal training, boot camps, and then some sort of team building events for corporates. And so we would take corporates on Tough Mudders, up and down Snowdonia and things like this, loads of different physical activities. And we'd normally kind of set them a goal, give them a training program and give them some education around it. And this is kind of the early days of corporate wellbeing for me, 2013, 14, something around that. And then while doing it, it was quite cool because you'd see all these people had the same problems and reasons of why they couldn't attend, or this was hurting, that was hurting. And I started to speak to the CEOs and executives in some of these really impressive companies and say, like, you need to start thinking about some sort of program because your sick days are going through the roof. The amount of people that have missed sessions because they're off sick or they're actually telling you they're sick and they're stressed. The early days of, again, we wouldn't call it a mental health day. This is what it was. And they weren't claiming. I was seeing all this kind of line up and patterns because people are very honest with their trainers. Like, they share everything far more than their boss. And it's not that you'd break that trust and say, Mark did this or someone did that, but I just give them this kind of oversight. And I started to then build some sort of programs where we looked at Fitbit data. We did little mini competitions and a bit of more CEO and executive coaching to teach them how to build some program for their team. That was the starting point. And during this time, I got super ill because I was super stressed. And I was doing a full-time degree, doing competitive bodybuilding, running this business, which was doing incredible. Honestly, it went really, really well. But I was just taking on more and more because I was filling up my stress hormones in my body to give me adrenaline, which I was missing from the military, is like the reflection back. And I didn't realize this at the time, but I enjoy being stressed because it made my adrenaline pump out, made me feel alive. And I was living on 5 hours sleep, but I ate a perfect diet. I was exercising twice a day, nearly every day. I looked like a mental health cover model type thing. but I wasn't happy, and I was starting to suffer with digestive issues, which actually then led into a condition which caused depression. And it was at this point I started to really look at, well, well-being isn't just exercise, it isn't just eating right. And I spent some time studying, going to a lot of seminars, met some really cool guys. There was one guy called Luke Lehman who just kind of basically made me look at all these different elements of the human body. And it was like pointing out different stars. And all of a sudden, he just brought it around in a circle. And it became, all of a sudden, I see this constellation. And once you see it, you go, aha, that's A, B, and C. And this is why D is happening. And I started to look at that in different aspects of me, but then also the clients I've been working with over years. And that's where we then started to think, okay, how do we turn this into something more scalable? Because every company I was working with was asking, instead of doing this for 30 employees, how do we do it for 300? How do we do it for 1,000? And that's where the starting idea of Soken was kind of born around 2018. And this is when I was coming out the back of feeling depressed. I didn't have the energy to put into more, and I also had to learn to say no, to prioritize myself first rather than just throw myself in at more. Even though I was depressed, I was very high functioning with work. It was just I wasn't producing serotonin, so I didn't feel happy. There was nothing bad in my life. It wasn't a psychological element, it was a biological element. And so this was, again, part of my understanding and learning. And it was also very humbling to go, well, I'm someone that's achieved A, B, C, been super physical and had this strong mental headspace for most of my life. Yeah, actually, I can feel like this. And that was part of also the thought, if I can feel that way, anyone can. And it was kind of brought me back down to reality and made me start looking again, as I said, at well-being and health in a very different way.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's not easy sometimes to necessarily talk about those dips that we have, right? High functioning depression is no small feat, and for somebody that's clearly a high performer, right, with the levels you're performing at both in the military and then when you left the military, to be running successful business, maintaining your fitness, let's say, rather than health by the sounds of things, that's a lot. And obviously to be functioning and having relationships and this kind of stuff, it takes an awful lot for somebody that is going through that level of performance to then essentially hit some form of rock bottom. And that's a really tricky thing to kind of climb your way out of. But I love the fact that you've done that through education, but also from embodying then everything that you've learned as a result of that. So you might have just touched on it, to be honest, but I'd really love to know, why is it so important to you with what you're doing at Soken? And please do tell our listeners a bit more about Soken and like what the mission is, and why is it so important for you to get the word out there and come and speak on podcasts like this and help these organizations, particularly in the UAE?
I think there's a world of bad information. I'm someone that from the age of 15, 16 was reading books on nutrition, anatomy and physiology. I didn't like science at school, but when I saw it relate to the human body, it started to really, it just ticked this part of interest in my brain. And so it's something that, I'm 36 now, it's been 21 years, I've been bettering my knowledge, and it's something you never know enough of. The smarter you get, the more stupid you feel within health and well-being and science. And so I see the changes in trends. I see these bad things pop up in the media. Follow this diet, follow that diet. Now, different supplements for X, Y, Z. And I find the problem for me is really that people have no idea, right? You see something, you see this amazing guy on Instagram, TikTok, whatever it happens to be. They look super professional. They look in great shape. Therefore, they must be healthy. Therefore, they must do what they say. And you make these presumptions, and you looked at my old Instagram, I looked like I told you, a picture of health. And I remember having this guy, it was in a gym in Kilburn in London. And he sat, after we'd had a shower, he sat like kind of opposite me, but a little bit off, which was good. There was no eye contact. And he just kind of told me, he's like, you have a perfect body. And I was just sat there at the point feeling very low in my own head, although I was doing okay. And I just went, but I'm not happy. And that wasn't an external sort of thing. It was, I may look good, but actually it doesn't mean I am healthy and I am doing the right things to be healthy. There's a very big difference between visual and what's going on internal. And so this is the same what you see on social media. Anyone can look healthy or tell you they're eating this and tell you they're doing that. But half and half, most of them are liars. And most of them, it's all about business. There's a very famous company, B-Shred, which does YouTube adverts, and they get slammed. The guy's telling you, you can eat all this pizza and this, that, and the other, and the secret is eating carbs to losing weight. No, you've got a clever business model that preys on people's want to look better and their vulnerabilities. And that's what sadly a large chunk of the health industry does.
Yeah.
Um, my goal is to reverse that, and everything that we do within Soken, everything I do when I tell someone, it's not for my own interest, although it's a business. Good quality scientifically backed information is the number one thing. Any program, any recommendation should come from not just one study, but multiple different studies over time to highlight this is probably the right way. And even then, it's not 100% guaranteed, right? It's probably the right way to do something. And then the other side of that, we don't sell any data. We don't place any products. We don't have any advertising. And this is just to guarantee that everything we put forward is unadulterated. There's no ulterior motive, because it's really easy to sell those things and make more money than we probably do right now. But then it goes against everything that's in my morals and values.
Yeah, you have to have the integrity to go with it. And that's one of the things I really love about you, Mark, and what you've created at Soken, is because you actually come from not only a health background, but also from your personal experience, you've been to the depths of both extremes as well. And I think that's something that's truly powerful. You're not just like a tech company that's created this platform because you've got a whole chunk of investment, or because it's just a nice idea to make some money. And it's a tech guy giving health advice, essentially. And we're seeing that more and more, especially here in the Middle East. So it's really, really important to make sure that the companies that are coming from the right place are making it to the forefront. And I think you're absolutely right in what you've said about, like, people are seeing in the health industry, people are starting to see through it now with social media. They can see that, the person that's completely ripped isn't necessarily living the same kind of lifestyle of the average person. Not everybody wants to be that ripped. They just want to be well, right? Most of the time. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure they would enjoy it if they don't want to go through the hard work to get there. But a lot of people are seeing through a lot of the BS now. And what I really like, though, is that you're bringing this into the workplace. You're bringing this into employees. I'm a true believer that we can't be what we can't see, right? So if somebody's only seeing a picture of health on Instagram, right, and they don't have particularly healthy role models in their everyday life, and most people don't, where else are they going to see it other than the other place they spend the bulk of their time, right? So tell us a little bit more about what it is you do with your platform when it comes to employee wellbeing, and why is that so important for you? Why did you focus on employees? Because you could have focused on anyone.
We actually looked at building a consumer product. That was part of it, and it probably would have been an easier path to raise investment and go through that sort of process. But I think, well, there was a couple of people that kept asking me a question about how do you do this for my staff. And these guys, there was one from Shulub Group, one who was the HR director of Shulub Group years ago. I was doing a business of wellbeing seminar for Bupa here, talking on stress. And there was another couple of like high-ranking HR, even there was a CEO there that asked the same question of how do you take this to our workforce. And this was again at the early point where I hadn't started designing anything. We'd just been looking up in the market. But I think with the workforce, we spend more and more time at work, right? Everyone knows this. We spend more and more time doing work because we can always reply from a phone. Well, that's the same sort of thing we can use for our own power. If you actually understand productivity and performance, we are going to be procrastinating. Okay, every single day, someone will procrastinate. No matter how amazing you are, you will spend time doing something you shouldn't be doing. And this is okay, by the way. Actually, it's really good for you. There's a guy that created the Pomodoro tomato little timer, little kitchen timer that used to do in like 5-minute chunks and stuff. The concept of productivity actually comes, and studies show that if we spend 20 to 25 minutes working, followed by a 5-minute break, e.g. procrastinate, we're actually more productive on the time and task we do. Now, if I told someone's boss every 25 minutes you need to give everyone a 5-minute break, they're going to hate you, right? They're not going to fall straight into that. But there's a better way to do it. If you do something in these short little stints to start making someone a bit more healthy or productive, and use that as the procrastination, and it doesn't have to be 25 minutes, they're then going to start to be more productive, and they'll see that as a byproduct. So something we try and encourage, like when we educate and speak within classes or into seminars and companies, is to try and spread that maybe to like 60 to 90 minutes, followed by a 5 to 10 minute break. And if you think about that realistically, you get up and fill some water, you use the bathroom, you take a walk around just around the floor in the office. That's all you have to do to be healthier. By getting up to go get a glass of water, or a reusable cup preferably, just breaking your posture from where we're sat every hour is really good for your overall mobility and longevity of how your body performs. Simple as that. It should be 15 minutes, but if you go where you get up, walk 5 minutes, move around, that's going to refresh your brain and kind of wake you up a little bit. More oxygen is going to pump and your heart rate's going to rise up. That in its own right is a little productivity break. I call these positive procrastinations. And that's what we try and encourage our employees to do. And so this is what we do with some of the challenges. We set little, small, achievable goals that aren't going to force you to do anything crazy outside of your normal routine. It should be achievable with not much extra effort, but just being conscious. And I think that's the goal with all the programs we build. There's nothing there trying to set someone from a beginner to run a marathon in 12 weeks. It's not healthy. It's do something more than you were doing yesterday and make that sustainable.
Yeah. And sustainable change is the way forward. And a lot of companies, I think, get very much swept away with the big shiny thing. They have to have this massive event, or they have to have this massive team building thing, or this massive overhaul. And actually, it's those small things that end up making the biggest differences. So we go in and we do like wellness campaigns with organizations here in the UAE. And, one of our most popular campaigns that we run is the One Simple Thing campaign, which is where we literally are encouraging employees to just pick one thing within a specific area of well-being that needs their attention that we've found through assessment. And from there, they can actually start to make these tiny, minute changes that actually add up and compound over time. So I think we're kind of almost seeing maybe the tail end of some of those big, audacious challenges. As much as they're good and they're exciting, they can be great for engagement and they have their place, then it needs to be coupled with something that's sustainable, like you've said. So I really love that approach. I really do like it. Mark, so tell me, what would somebody say to you? Like, so when you've been speaking to HR directors, CEOs, like other than the scalability of how can you help this many people, what are the biggest challenges that they're facing when it comes to well-being that they're sharing with you?
That's a hard one. I mean, as a challenges for an organization is them trying to justify the spending, right? That's always the starting challenge. Unless you have someone from the top that's already lives this lifestyle and has practiced and preached and understands the true benefit. And you get some companies like that, but you're talking probably 1% where they go, we already know the benefits of this, we feel and live and see. So that organization wise is they need to prove some ROI and how you measure that. And I think that's really, I used to think it was super challenging because I used to have to give them a dirham value or a dollar value to why that would be. But actually, something we started measuring because we live in the UAE, happiness, employee happiness. We get our employees to click an emoji every day when they log in. Like when you go to the airport, there's 3 smiley faces or 5 smiley faces. Same thing. You don't even think about it. It just becomes a very repetitive, easy action. But trying to get these different data points then helps show that ROI. So we look at happiness, physical activity, and then we use the self-perception of stress. So how stressed do employees think they are on a scale of 1 to 10? And they're 3 pretty honest things. The physical activity comes from your phone. Wherever your phone moves, we know it's moving. And this is all it's all in your data privacy, but your phone tracks everything like that anyway. And so you have 3 different types of scoring values, and that's kind of cool. But what I see in terms of from like the employee side, what they always say is their struggle. They don't know where to start, or they set a crazy goal. So this idea of understanding and goal setting has probably been our most popular sessions as of late. And actually, this is kind of something I did at the Wellbeing event you saw, is how to plan a goal and understanding what your purpose is for that goal. So if I want to lose weight, is that really my goal? I probably feel I want to look better in a bikini, or maybe not for me, but in swimwear or whatever, you know what I mean? And so with that, if I set the lose weight goal, actually, what am I trying to achieve? And it's not just lose weight, because if I lose 4 kilos, that doesn't really mean anything to me. It's a number, but it doesn't really feel good. You'll get there and you'll go, oh, I could lose 1 kilo more. So understanding that purpose allows you to track back and then learn how to set your goal. And so this is something we're actually working on, a new feature in Soken, which is interventions. And we did some work earlier actually last year and earlier this year with one big medical and pharmaceutical companies here, where we did some really cool studies where we tracked hundreds of their employees. We did blood work, psychological testing, physical testing, so movement analysis, VO2 max, all these cool things. And for me, it was amazing. It was just being a nerd for a few months. And then we built some custom programs, what we call interventions, and we were tracking from the surveys and onboarding what interventions we gave them, how they responded, and what progress it made. And so now, rather than someone go, "This is my goal, I want to lose weight," actually, we're going to ask them loads of questions and then give them 3 or 4 different intervention options. And then from those interventions, it drives them into some sort of short program of about 30 days. And I think this will help with that goal setting. It kind of takes it away. And the more we can make it simple and short, that's the better our attention span can focus. And also the way that the brain works with dopamine and pleasure, if we can make it small, achievable, and therefore rewarding, you're more likely to sustain it and achieve.
Yeah, 100%. I really like the fact this is all automated as well, right? So these employees are going through this, but those interventions will kind of just switch on accordingly depending on their results. So it's not like they have to then go and have like some like extra special time and effort that goes into it. It basically all gets served up for you on the app, right?
Yeah. So when you fill out your basic profile, and we have depends what company. Some companies, they don't want this level and they don't want all the program. We just tick a box to say which segments they get. But then we have basic profile, then we have like our extended survey, and this is looking at loads of from depression surveys to mental health to happiness. We put blends of all these different surveys together. Try to keep it short, like around 30 to 40 questions. So it's still not too long that you're spending 3 hours there clicking all these things, and that will then drive them through to give them 3 or 4 intervention options. And with that, we have behavioral or programs. So you can have one program, and that would be like workouts, nutrition-based program, mindfulness or something like this. So they're kind of a set 30-day program. And then with the behavioral, it'd be something simple like a little personal goal: drink more water, don't eat fast food. But again, another 30-day thing that kind of they align together, but they have different ways of triggering pleasure in the brain. One of them is a click and instant sort of gratification, and then the other one is actually by driving some sort of physical result in their self.
Fantastic. So Mark, what would you say are the components of a successful employee wellbeing program?
I think something you kind of touched on a little bit before. You have to understand what the employees want. You can give them anything, and they may engage with it, and some may engage better than others. But I could give 5 companies the same thing. One gets 60-70%, and one will get 3% engagement, right? And so we started to see a change in the last 6 months or so, maybe the start of this year, where people are now starting to spend money understanding their problem before throwing money at solving the problem or the problem they think they have. And that's been a change in the region and how the well-being market has grown. At first, people wanted a quick, easy win, and so they wanted to do something that was cheap and to show that they cared, but they didn't really care. People are now starting to care. And especially you're seeing a lot from HR, like at the event we ran, you're seeing lots of HR directors and CEOs come and actually start to understand this wellbeing program and problem. So I think the key is do some sort of surveying analysis, speak to your employees. You know your employees better than any organization does, right? I can run all this data and metrics from my app, but your people are still people and they're human. And asking them and seeing their challenges and problems is a starting point. But then when you understand those challenges and problems that they're talking about, and this is part of the surveys we do as well now, we ask them how they're looking at their home life, their sleep, their physical activity, stress, their perception of their employee well-being programs and stuff right now. So we ask some of these questions, and that's a good tracking point going forward to see if we've improved on it. But when you ask them something, you need to, if you're going to ask a question, you need to be sure that you're going to show them the answers, and also how can you improve on that. There's no point in me asking, do you feel stressed in the workplace? All of my employees say yes, and then we go, okay, great, I'm not going to do anything with that. Yeah. You've lost their engagement right away. Then any activity you put in, well, you're not doing this for us, you're doing it for you. As an employee, you've got to do something for them. And if you can understand their wants and needs, how you can make them feel better, they'll engage with it. It doesn't matter whether it's an app a physical session, find what they are. And I tell this to every company we work with. We may not be the right product for you, by the way. Right? We may not. And just because I think we've got a good app doesn't mean it's going to solve all your issues. That we're still human. When we look generationally through the workforce, certain generations respond better to tech than others. Certain respond better to human interaction. We've got a quite diverse range in our workforce now where it's literally split, where some people want to speak to people and have physical sessions completely, and some would rather only do it digital. When you look at the millennial sort of generation, they prefer to talk and tell you about their feelings over a messaging service rather than go to visit a physical counselor. So it's quite challenging now in that split we have. But this is where you have to speak, and no one program will probably cover that. Like I say, we now started to blend in physical activities because actually we were seeing people want that. They're sick of just digital, and they want a bit of both, and that tends to get that higher engagement throughout the general population in your organization.
Yeah, definitely. Preaching to the choir here about understanding the workforce and their needs. If we're at a point now with the wellness theory that we won't actually work with a client, we're not the right client for them if they're not willing to actually see what their employees actually need. And it's not necessarily a case of getting their opinion on what are they going to love, like what kind of challenges do they want. It's more, like you said, it's understanding the depth. What do they actually need? They're going to have a lot of things that they want. It's not necessarily the same thing that they need. And then it's about kind of finding that middle ground to be able to then serve the organization in the healthiest way. And I like that you said that an app isn't necessarily the thing that's going to solve all of the problems in an organization when it comes to well-being, and it's really refreshing to hear that from a technology-based founder, right? Because again, there's a lot of competitors out there that are like, no, this is the complete solution. It's like, well, is it? There's a lot to be said for organizational hygiene and culture that plays a massive role.
Hugely.
I was speaking to a big company here in Abu Dhabi, was going through the assessment phase, and I asked them, are you currently using any kind of technology, any apps? What are you using to help support and engage with your employees? And I was like, great. They told me the name of the app. I was like, excellent. How is that being utilized? Like, oh yeah, it's amazing. Like these are the stats. Stats were just like pretty much pulled out of the air. They weren't really accurate, I would say. And then we went into the kind of focus groups and speaking to the employees, and obviously being an independent person going in and our team going in, you start to hear a different side of it. And when we simply ask them the question, do you have any technology supporting your employee wellbeing journey, one of them out of about 100 said, I think we've got an app, but I don't know the name of it. Everybody else said no. Right, which I was like jaw to the floor, because the app that was being used was actually quite expensive, and it was something that they weren't even bothering to check the adoption of this, and a lot of their strategies were very much focused on the technology side of it. So it just then made me wonder, okay, who actually really cares about this? So I'm really curious to know, Mark, like from your experience, how have you found like the adoption of Soken within different organizations? Because it's around 15 to 18% adoption is like that tipping point, right? Where now the company can actually expect to see some meaningful impact. So like where does Soken fit in the landscape of things?
So with our small organizations, and I'm talking 50 to 300, 350 employees, something it's actually not small, medium, small, but with the smaller sized organizations, we see pretty good adoption because word of mouth within it is pretty powerful and strong. And so there was ADGM, there was one of the ladies, a local lady, fantastic woman. When challenges were starting, although we were pushing notifications out, and we couldn't use email there because of their network and privacy stuff, so we only could use push notifications, and they had to put an internal comm, and they could only put one comm periodically. But she'd go around to the department managers telling them, you've got this challenge, and we made some challenges into department. And so then the department managers kind of all knew they were competing against each other, and then they were going to their teams, okay, let's go. And they were purposefully excited to spend time helping their employees get up and on there, and we ran some onboarding sessions and live sessions to kind of balance it. But that would see a really good level of engagement. And again, this company Invisalign, they have a small office, they maybe like 60 to 80 people or something like that, but it was one giant office, and you could see everyone pretty much from in the office other than their salespeople. And so with that, you go to a session and everyone's there listening, and then they're all talking about it afterwards. And again, these team captains were the ways to engage. And each team captain did there, they created a WhatsApp group, and the team captains were posting like motivational videos, tips and hints. And this wasn't coming from us. This was, they went off their own back and took that little bit of lead. But this is finding those people that have that good vision and view. That's harder to do in a large organization. But if you can find those people, reward them a little bit and incentivize them to kind of talk and bring that's where we would drive that engagement adoption up. When we look at the larger companies, we see these big drives, and that will typically kind of drive your engagement 50-60%, early on, but then you're going to see a slow trickle and drop off. And so this is where we battle now, like when you're 6-9 months into a program, how do we re-pick that up? And we started to look at how we release features. Before, we were just wanting to fix things and add new things and make it exciting. Now we periodically build them up. And something we've released this year, and this is kind of thanks to Etihad, who we've been working with, was wellbeing tokens. And so for every action that employees undertake, it drives to point scoring. And this isn't about, again, running a marathon. If you get 7+ hours sleep in the night, you get 2 tokens, right? Who's not going to try and get 7 hours sleep? Okay, some of us don't, but it's something really easy to achieve and therefore can drive reward. If you hit 8,000 steps, you'd also get the 2 tokens. I know which one's easier, but they have the same sort of health benefits when you look at science. If I log my nutrition for the day, again, I log my portions of nutrition, I get 2 tokens. And so there's simple things like that. And then when we put challenges, and we have higher scoring peaks throughout the year. So when I do a challenge, I get 5 tokens to join the challenge. I get a bonus if I complete 50% of it, a bonus if I complete 100% of it. So if my challenge, we did a happiness challenge a few months ago during Ramadan. If I hit 15 days out of 30 of doing the happiness-based activities, I got a bonus of 25 tokens on top of the daily score. If I hit 100% of the days, and this is for doing like a 2 to 5 minute action, I get a 50 token bonus. And it's really fun and easy. And those little streaks, and these kind of come from the psychological triggers within a digital product, and they're starting to pick up and make people talk about it. But trying to harness on this word of mouth, we're looking at, you see a lot of apps do it. Who's really guilty? There's an app called Revolut. They're like a digital payment card, but you put your money in an app and you can have multiple cards off it and give them to your kids or whatever like that. And they're very good for when you travel. They have a great exchange rates. They're always doing this model that Uber used of refer a friend and get 100 dirhams or something like that credit. Uber used to do it for £10 or 50 dirhams or something like that. So we're looking now, how do we do some sort of referral thing to pick up a friend, and if your friend jumps on, we'll give you some sort of bonus or benefit. That's what we're looking to now try and keep that engagement going. But we tried this again a few months ago, where we did a challenge whereby you had to pick a partner. And so you had to pick a partner that wasn't already using the app. Okay, so a colleague, actually Etihad did friends and family as well. Pick someone that wasn't already using it, register them, and then do a challenge as a pair. And this was really cool because we saw a massive jump in engagement, but also new users that then stayed for the following challenge, which was really, really great data, and also how we're starting to see that. So I think this concept of word of mouth, but that's a lot harder in a large organization. So finding little triggers, how you get people talking about it. And you mentioned earlier, the keyword is culture, right? If you start to get them to, if you tell them you're going to do something, show them you're going to do something, and then keep showing them, they're going to believe you and then go, okay, this isn't just a fad. This isn't just a 1 month. They're going to make it look good, and then no one gives a damn. They're going to keep going. And again, Etihad have been very good here. They have a team of maybe four staff through their like medical clinic that run different activities periodically throughout the year. So they've been giving me, oh, we want these push notifications. Amazing, sure. You tell me you want something, I'll do it for you. As simple as that. And they've been asking, can we change this challenge to have these scoring and this metrics? And yeah, if you think that's going to work, and you've been speaking to your employees and you're getting that honest feedback, not just what our stats are saying, right? We can tell them anything, we don't, but if you're getting that feedback and we combine the two, it becomes a partnership, and that's what's really going to drive that. Again, if you expect us to do everything for you, we can do our best. But if you don't believe in it and your staff aren't engaged because you don't care, then they're going to know and they're going to feel that.
Exactly, and that's the dream, isn't it? Having a team within the team that are really passionate about this stuff. One of the things I've found as well is that the people that are most passionate about it within an organization are people that have, again, had their own personal experience of either burnout or felt the such positives of the level of vitality that they're seeing. So they're more likely to champion it within, which is
Yeah.
excellent. I think, and I don't want to skirt over this because I think it's really important what you mentioned about the tokens and the reward mechanism, because that plays a huge part, because it is like the, okay, companies saying, yes, we're going to support you with these goals, we want you to be healthy, we want you to be happy. Not only are we going to follow through on our word and keep that trust with you, but we're also going to incentivize you and reward you so that you stay on the path, because that's such a gift, is to help somebody create lasting change, than it is for, like you said, like the quick fixes or the 1 month stints and things like that. So with the wellness tokens, I know we've talked about this obviously offline around ways of using those tokens in innovative ways. So one of the things that obviously we're kind of in talks about at the moment is, how do we turn that into a giving back piece? So anybody who's listening to this podcast will know that we are in partnership with a company called B1G1, who are a business for good. So everybody that listens to this episode, something good is going to happen in the world just a result of you listening. So the same idea is something I would love to see. And obviously this is just a conversation at the moment with you and I, but it's something I would love to see, is a way in which when somebody goes out and gets 1,000 steps, they get one of those tokens, and that automatically can be redeemed through giving back to someone, like a family that need of clean water and things like that. So tell me a little bit more about the wellness tokens, and what you have obviously existing at the moment that your users are really, really enjoying.
So each company has a different reward profile at the moment. We don't have a complete. We give them options A, B, C, because we've kind of been trialing it and seeing what works. It's kind of been a work in progress this year, but something we spoke about last time was, how do we turn that? And I told you my favorite app. How do we turn it into this giving? And my favorite app that I use, and it's not my own, it's called Tree App, and it's the most simple thing in the world, that I watch an advert or look at some sort of product which is sustainable, environmentally friendly, every day, and it takes about 30 seconds to a minute, and they plant a tree somewhere in the world for me. And it's my most used app. I've planted like 360 trees in the last year or something like that. Literally nearly one a day, right? There's a few days I've missed. But it's super simple. Now, if I can set my goal, like we talked about before, okay, my goal is to lose weight. Okay, losing weight isn't that interesting. It means I've got a diet. What if I change and reframe that to, I want to increase my step count because I want to feel healthier and have a better physical level. I want to be more active with my kids. It's going to cause me to lose weight. Okay, now if we can give them some greater purpose, I want to be more active with my kids. We need to give them that little reminder then. The kids is going to be there as the overviewing goal, that I want to be healthier and be more physically active with them. If we can give them these little bite-sized snacks of pleasure, dopamine hits, such as, you got 2 tokens, okay, at the end of the week or end of the month, you've got 100 tokens. This could be spent on planting a tree. It could be feeding a child in Africa, and giving them this shorter term incentive to work towards the long term goal. I think that becomes super powerful. And I know that companies are now starting to look at this CSR, corporate social responsibility sort of piece as a must, thanks to like the SDG goals and the UN side of stuff. I think now it's trying to take just the health and fitness alone isn't a big enough motivator for some people, and that's where we need this little bit of extrinsic motivation from figuring how their brain works and giving them some sort of pleasure for doing things, but also then give a bigger purpose. And I love the idea of turning it into something positive. Imagine being healthier and giving to charity for being healthier. Like,
Exactly.
everyone wants to do something. It's like a mind blown at the moment. It's like, oh wow, that's easy, because everyone feels good for doing something good for someone else, right? Like, I don't. For me, one of my biggest bouts of happiness is when I do something for someone else, an act of service. I get more pleasure out of giving someone a gift than I get out of receiving a gift, right? And then, okay, if I do a few thousand steps, I then get that extra pleasure, plus I'm actually looking after myself. It
Exactly.
just becomes a little win-win circle or cycle.
Exactly. And that's kind of the point, right? We'll always do more for other people than we'll do for ourselves naturally, right? Just the way we've been conditioned, I think. So if we're then saying, okay, well, if I go back out and get another 50 steps because I'm this close to my goal, I'm going to do it if it means something good's going to happen somewhere, right? I'm way more likely to do it. But we have to obviously look at, yes, that sense of purpose and CSR is really, really important. At the same time, everyone's human. They also want those kind of materialistic rewards as well. We did a big one of our team did a Biggest Loser challenge with a company here in Abu Dhabi, and the company was amazing. They put up like a cash reward at the end of it. There was like other different incentives. Like one of them got like a certain amount of money off of the car and things like this the company put up as well.
Amazing.
So imagine if we could have things like that alongside this force for good element. Imagine how much happier the employees would be if it's almost like the side effect of them being healthy. So it's almost like you're masking it, a bit like when you're a kid, like your parents shove your vegetables inside something to trick you into eating them. It almost feels like we need to do that a little bit to some extent when it comes to employee well-being, almost like just like immerse it all together as best we can, so that we can start to just reap the benefits all round. Because like you said, it's a win-win-win-win-win for everybody: organization, employee, and society.
Yeah, I mean, when you word it like that, definitely. Um, I think like it's quite hard because some companies still don't want to value employee well-being. So you could use like the CSR and giving as their push arm, or like kind of forceful way to, well, you get this as a byproduct. You get the employee well-being as a byproduct of doing this. Some people want the employee well-being. The hard thing there and the hard thing with the digital product is making that really trigger and find what the individual wants to make it work. For a company, we do that at the start when we speak to them. Okay, what is it you want to focus on? What are we trying to achieve? And we set those sort of goals. But then when you've got all these different employees, it's very hard to find the right thing. Some people aren't motivated by money, right? Some people are very heavily motivated by money. For me, it doesn't interest me. There's things that I enjoy far more. Being a founder of a business and going through the last 4 years from being broke and then living like a student again, to then having plenty of cash in the bank and buying a house and being able to look after yourself. I don't feel any happier from having my own home than I did from when I lived off 10,000 dirhams a month, where I could eat, sleep, exercise, see my friends. There's a certain amount of money that goes so far, and that's where I think the CSR stuff. But again, not everyone's going to find that CSR that engaging. They're not going to maybe see the physical action and reward. And this is the piece I don't have the full answer to right now. Is how do you? This comes when we look at adverts. How do you basically understand each individual employee and show them what they want? When we think of like what we see on Google ads, and we all joke and talk about, I was talking about this product the other day with my friend, and all of a sudden it's on my phone. Like, how the hell has that got there? We kind of need some sort of mechanism in our data analysis and study that would start to highlight what each employee would want. So maybe that's using their cookies and things, but it becomes more invasive, and I don't know, for me, it kind of maybe breaks that level of trust if our app starts showing them direct things that they've been talking about, searching about, or something like that. This is my personal feeling, not a definite. It's a really hard one to completely solve.
I think that's something that I think is going to evolve naturally over time, because employee well-being is still very early on. If you look at it as an industry, it's only just becoming an industry of its own, workplace well-being, really. Don't get me wrong, people have been working hard for a very long time in and around this topic, but particularly in this region, it's something that's still up and coming. So we need to adapt and evolve with it. And the only way we're going to be able to do that effectively is by keep on speaking to employees, keep speaking to leaders, and start and really understand. We have 3 different entry points, well, 4 technically, with the wellness theory. We work with burnt out leaders one-to-one. We then also work with companies when it comes to organizational culture and hygiene, wellness campaigns, and integrating social good into the workplace. So some companies that we work with will immediately be like, I want to do all three, we're going to integrate it, and they go the whole hog, right? And they honestly are the ones that get the best results. But then we have other companies that are like, okay, we want to explore the integrating social good piece, and they're not yet the other two, and vice versa. And it's so interesting just seeing how it's unfolding, because it's like you said, it's different strokes for different folks. Obviously you didn't quite use those words, but it's very much I think at the starting point right now here. And I think as more and more forward thinking leaders step up and realize what problems they're facing and how they can adjust now, because the ways of working is very different from what it was obviously pre-pandemic, but also because we're moving more and more into a technical we're moving more into more of a technology driven lifestyle. So we're really starting to watch the unfolding of this, and beautifully for us, I'm very grateful to be on the sidelines to be able to help support that. But we need to be open. I think this is going to be the only way.
Well, that's what I was saying. When we look at the different generations in the workforce, they all respond very differently, right? And so when you start to look at that, their motivations in life are very different. Yeah. We think of my parents' generation was save for tomorrow and always worry out for a rainy day. Now the younger 20, 21-year-olds, they care about what they look like to their friends. And that's not the visual aspect. It's, do they represent and support good companies? Do they work for a good company that looks after the environment? Do you care about the environment, right? And so that difference is huge. So my parents' generation, a cash bonus would have probably been great because they would save that and put it in their little nest egg for retirement. Now these kids don't even think about pension or retirement. They're like, we've got ages to live. Actually, we need to make sure the planet's around, the quality of life's there before I worry about what I'm going to do in 50 years' time. But whereas my parents' generation was get a good job with a pension and stay in it for 20 years, right? And don't move, don't breathe. I remember when I left I sold my business in London. My mum just said to me, she's like, what are you doing? And I was just like, I see this vision. I want to make this happen. Like, it excites me. It's personal. I see the ideas and I think it's cool. And she's like, yeah, but you're giving up earning this much money and you've got a nice house, and why would you do that? Because I'm not happy doing that anymore. It doesn't excite me. It doesn't challenge me. It doesn't make me feel it. It's not that it was bad. I enjoyed the people I worked with. We got great results, but I just saw I wanted something new and challenging, exciting. And I think this is where leaders and stuff need to look at that within their workforce. How do we find something that excites different tiers, and understanding that for now that's going to be different, right? Maybe in 10 years time that generational gap will close a lot more and we'll all be a little bit more digital friendly. Maybe not. Maybe we'll be the OAPs and not understanding anything that's going on in 10 years, but for now I think you need to separate. Age definitely has a big part in some of those different campaigns, and a good leader will start to recognize that difference in all of those generations.
Yeah, definitely. And this is one of the things I really like actually about what you're doing at Soken is it's not just off the shelf. You will personalize the experience for each organization that's needed. Again, that's something that I see makes you stand out as a competitor. It's not just go onto the website, sign up, job done. It's very much about, okay, understanding the workforce, understanding the needs. Don't get me wrong, there's obviously some similarities in what you deliver across the board. You have to be able to be scalable, but at the same time you're doing it with pure intention, and I think that makes a world of difference to the kind of results that will come as a result for employees. Mark, whilst I've got you here, I'm going to be conscious of your time here, but you have a tech-based business, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the most vulnerable groups to burnout is technology. They're at higher risk of burnout. So I'd really love for you, if possible, just as we start to wrap up this conversation, is to tell us, how do you make sure that you and your team don't burn out?
A lot of bosses might hate me, but I don't log working hours for my employees. I do not monitor a single minute or hour they're there in a week. We set them a goal and a task. And that's it. And before we do that, we plan. So say we're releasing a new feature. So we're going to build the wellbeing tokens. I'd speak to my team lead. I'd ask him some time estimations based on this early scope of what we're planning for the project. He would tell me it's going to take around 6 weeks. He's built in his little factor. I know he's put in 30% there. I'm going to add a little buffer on the top and say, okay, I think I'm going to give him 7. And with that, we break down and go, okay, this is our plan. This is what we've got to do. Okay, this dev's got this amount of work. This has got this. They need to achieve this week this task, and it needs to be tested and done this. And we set these little micro sprints. And this is how tech companies work. Set micro sprints, and it's all about the job. And so some days they may have to work long hours, and sometimes if they've messed up and not done things, and this is not my goal, if they messed up, I will ask them to work a weekend. I have done, but on a general week, they come in at 10 and 10:30. I don't even know. Like sometimes it's I don't want to know. But as long as they're achieving the goal we set them and it's to a good standard, and we're tracking that and we see that the work's coming through as good quality, then that's our goal, right? We're setting them a goal. We want them to do work. I don't want them to spend time. Time's the most important thing in the world. So for me, getting devs to not have to sit there for 40, 50, 60 hours a week looking at a screen is really important. A lot of my developers are actually Muslim, so they get up and pray. And Friday they have a long prayer break, and I tell them, go do that. Go if you want to go have a full prayer break every few hours, go do it. Great. I have no issue. If any of them wants to go do a workout in the day, go do it. Great. I know when they come back, they're going to be more productive. And if one of them says, Mark, I'm not feeling great today, one of my team lead, Ali, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, gave me a call and he said, I'm not feeling good today. Do you mind if I take some time off? And I went, yeah, take the whole day. Okay. Not an issue, right? He's my team lead. He's my glue. Without him, I'd have imploded. But nothing crazy is going to happen in that one day that I'm going to miss him that much. And then maybe 4 or 5 hours later, I saw him on Slack. I gave him a call. I was like, Ali, what are you doing? He's like, I'm feeling a bit better. I went, no, you said you weren't feeling good. Take the day off and go come back tomorrow. Get a good night's sleep. Go do something that makes you happy. Come back when you're feeling right. If that's not tomorrow, cool, tell me, we'll talk about it. We can have a little chat. I can take some of your load and we'll see how we do it. But this idea of not working to time in the military was very good for this, by the way, because we just did a job until it was done. I think this may be where it comes from. In Afghanistan, sometimes we're working 18, 20 something hour days. But then the days where we didn't have stuff to do, we were chilled. And although it was not like there was a pool there to go have a nice fun time, we'd be sat under a poncho, we'd have a little mini iPod dock, read a book, do some stupid exercise stuff, maybe find some camel spiders, poke them around or something. But we just did stuff that was fun. And there was, when we weren't working, although we were always at work here in Afghanistan, it was go do something that makes you happy or something you enjoy. And I think that's really important. If you're starting to feel bad or tired, go do something that's going to make you feel better. Don't keep draining that battery down to the point it's dead. Charge it up while it's at 50%.
Yeah.
Rather than zero. It's not like you're not a phone. It's not like the quick charge is going to kick up. The lower we go, the harder it is to. We talked about this earlier. The lower we go, the harder it is to kind of bounce back up, because you start having negative feelings and negative thoughts, and that can become a snowball effect and keep you going down the hill. So the sooner you can recognize it, the sooner you can start. The sooner you should start to change that. If that means go take a nap, okay, it's hard. I work from home some days, so if I'm really tired, I've taken a nap and lay down on my sofa for 20 minutes and set an alarm for 40 minutes just to be safe, because I know I've not got a call till then. Is that the most professional thing to do? It's hard for a company to do, but find something that makes you feel better. And that's my biggest one.
I love that. I love that so much. And again, it's just a great example. And that's one of the things about this podcast is about showing and leading by example of what is possible in the different ways. Because, that might not be right for one company, but another leader might be listening to this thinking, do you know what? Maybe I could implement something like that, at least with one team, and trial it and just start to really, prompt the curiosities that a little bit more. So, Mark, that being said, as we wrap up now, tell us, for anyone listening that might be on the fence, they know employee wellbeing is important, and they know they need to do something, but they're not really sure where to start. What would your advice be?
Easy advice is, it depends on the size of your organization, but ask a few people. Ask some of your team what would actually help you. All right, once you have that's your starting point. For me, pick something that's low hanging. Like you mentioned it earlier, pick that something that you can do really easy, that doesn't have to have a large cost. It could be really, really simple, that you have some sort of, recycling challenge, right? Think outside the box. I don't even know how you do recycling. I don't know. I'm trying to think of something really different and simple. We've done lots of really mini things. Something we did that was really cool. We found in a company, it was called Inform, an events company. They had someone that was trained as a nutritionist, and we got her to do something really simple where they everyone brought their lunch to her and showed her their lunch, and she would give them a couple of tips of how to improve it. It cost them nothing. She works for the company. They just said, take a bit longer over your lunch break. And she would they'd be bringing biryani or this, and she's like, okay, sprinkle some spinach in that. That's going to increase this and make it a little bit healthier. If you've ordered a Five Guys for lunch, she's going to tell you maybe don't order fries and a burger. But it was something really, really simple. But maybe try and utilize someone that you've got in your team that can do something really, really simple. Maybe you've got a yoga instructor. Maybe someone's done some meditation. It could be really simple that you put a session every Friday before or after lunch. Go on YouTube and type stress relieving mindfulness session. Play it and make everyone just sit there, right? That could be a start, and see if people feel better. Ask them afterwards, did anyone feel better? And it doesn't have to be in front of the group. Just go, or even put a little voting box. We did this with the Ministry of Interior in Saudi. We did some focus groups. So we did some surveying, some focus groups. And because they're kind of military-esque, they had leaders within these focus groups. And I was like, you're not going to get an honest response from your employees or staff when you have the leaders there. So I said super simple, like a ballot box. I got a little box, a piece of paper, and I gave them all a piece of paper. I want you to write something on there about what you really feel about employee wellbeing would make you happier or make you feel better, and put it in the box. The answers in the box were so different from the surveys and from the focus group because they thought the other ones were being monitored. Right? They thought that they were going to be checked who said what. With this, there was no way to tell because there was a box with 100 pieces of paper, and I took it and they didn't take it, right? And so something super simple like that, really fun, really easy. Put the options up on a little board afterwards to show them and go, okay, we're going to work on this one. Okay, done, easy.
Nice. Perfect. Amazing. Great place for anyone listening to get started. And even if somebody listening to this is already doing a lot for their employee wellbeing, keep it simple, right? Consider some of those points as well, because that's what it keeps it sustainable, right? The bigger it is, the shinier it is. Sometimes that doesn't always mean the most successful it's going to be. So thank you for those insights.
Totally agree.
Mark, so you have chosen the global goal of sustainable cities and communities to donate your listens for this episode towards the global goals. Just tell us, why is that such an important goal for you when it comes to the giving back piece?
I mean, I'm a firm believer in what we have in our environment. I told you my favorite app is my Tree app, right? It's my most used app, and that's being a tech founder that has our own app. It's just something that's super simple, and I think if we start to make a change in it now, it's not too late to make something positive. But understanding what that could look like to make those changes is really, really simple. I know how I feel when I'm around nature and greenery as a psychological feel, let alone what it's doing for my environment, air clarity and quality, but also just the world as a whole. So for me, that's really, really simple why that's mine.
I love that so much. So anybody that's listening, if you've enjoyed this episode and you think there's a lot of value here, everybody you share it with who listens to this episode, there will be a donation given towards sustainable cities and communities. Thanks to Mark Maycroft for coming on the show, giving his insights and sharing his wisdom with us today. Thanks a lot, Mark.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me.
Today's episode was hosted by myself, Charlotte Stebbing-Mills, the co-founder of The Wellness Theory. If you enjoyed this episode, please do subscribe and share with someone who may benefit, and be part of our mission to help people realise when they're healthy and well, they can be a force for good in the world. I just wanted to share some more about our partner, B1G1. B1G1 is a global movement that enables businesses to incorporate effective impact creation into their everyday activities in a simple and powerful way. Through B1G1, businesses can choose from a wide range of verified projects around the world and integrate these impacts into their business operations. The core concept of B1G1 is that every business transaction or interaction can be directly linked to making a positive impact in our world, whether it's providing access to clean water, supporting education, planting trees, or addressing social issues. B1G1 enables businesses of all types to make a real difference. To find out more about them, visit their website at b1g1.com. Until next time, be well, mean well, and make a difference that lasts. See you in the next episode.